All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin the next session, just to let you know that the ICDM team will be updating our LinkedIn, our Twitter, and live. And so do follow us and join us the conversation online. We would love to hear your thoughts and your views as well using the hashtag IDS2019. So once again, do join us in the conversation on Twitter, on LinkedIn with the hashtag IDS2019. You can look us up on LinkedIn. It's Institute of Corporate Directors Malaysia. Our Twitter handle is ICD Malaysia. So once again, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've got one more panel discussion before we take a lunch break. It's going to be a tough performance to follow, following the first speaker, Stefan, who was truly so animatic and entertaining. Now keep the questions coming. Again, we're going to have floor mics and we're going to have Slido as well available for all to ask your questions. Feel free to post your questions throughout the entire discussion. All right, we're just going to wait for a few more guests to come in, a few more of our delegates to take your seats, and we're going to quickly begin the next session. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let us kick off our next session with our panel discussion. I'd like to welcome back Sri on stage to set the tone for the next session and to elaborate more about the next topic. Sri?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's me again. One of the lessons I've learned is to actually write down any book or anything you're going to quote in the notes itself, right? And I don't know if Stefan is back in the room. Is he here? I will never, ever forget the title of the book. It's a tiger, a cat, and a dinosaur. Not a mouse, not anything else, but a tiger, cat, and dinosaur. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to shift gears now. We're going to talk a little bit about the role of directors across ASEAN. And these are exciting times indeed for ASEAN. We celebrated our 50th anniversary a couple of years ago. We are advancing as a regional economy on various fronts, including human capital development and adoption of technology. And never has the need to pursue regional cooperation been as important as it is now. It's against this backdrop as well that ICDM has been collaborating with other countries in the region to develop ASEAN as a champion in governance. So well done, ICDM, for doing that. And this summit is one such platform to enable corporate leaders and directors across the whole region to network, to collaborate, and to exchange ideas. And to quote the chairman of ICDM, Tan Sri Zaharah, mentioned that corporate governance must simply start with the boardroom. Now, pursuing something cross-borders isn't a completely foreign concept, as companies have been expanding regionally for a while right now. If you look at the intra-ASEAN trade, statistics that have been developed by The Economist says that between 2000 and 2013, the value of trade more than tripled to $607 billion over that period of time. And to keep pace with these developments, companies need to embrace board members from around the region, from across borders. We've already seen that happening in Malaysia if you look at the likes of CIMB, Axiata, and AirAsia over the last decade or so. Clearly, the question is, can we afford to be insular, or do we need to be a bit more open in our approach to leadership and business conduct? And having a cross-border mindset will arguably promote trust and understanding to help organizations make sense of the diverse business landscape that we actually operate in today. So on that note, the first plenary session today, we're going to explore what it means to build a new paradigm towards ASEAN 4.0 through the role of board members. It'll address the critical role that boards play in building greater transparency and trust through the creation of a regional network of directors to enable this shift to happen. Befitting the theme of this plenary session, we have an illustrious group of panelists with diverse backgrounds and nationalities to discuss the benefits of tapping on an ASEAN network of directors to achieve our ambitions. So allow me to introduce and invite on stage our panelists today, Datuk Shireen Muhiudeen, the chairman of Bursa, Malaysia. I think they're making their way into the hall as we speak. So hold your applause for a minute, please. Okay, Datuk Shireen Muhiudeen, chairman of Bursa, Malaysia. Madam Ha Tu Thanh, chairman of the Vietnam Institute of Directors. Madam Ha. Datuk Sri Dr. Nick Nozrul Thani, Executive Chairman of ZICO. And last but not least, Mr. Kulvek Janawattanit, CEO of the Thailand Institute of Directors, and an ex-colleague of mine from PricewaterhouseCoopers in Thailand. Moderating the session today, and that's very useful for me because I then don't have to do a wrap-up, is my senior from university actually, who is with a friendly competitor, Mr. Chow Sang Ho, Malaysian and Asian Advisory Managing Partner of Ernst & Young. Welcome, Chow. Thank you.
Can I have the mic on? Oh, thank you. Good morning, about to be good afternoon. Thank you very much for staying on and coming back. The session is on ASEAN 4.0. We've got a great set of panelists with us this morning. The first question I'd like to run it this way. We'll start with one question from me for each of the panelists, and then after that we open to the floor. I was discussing with them, we want to make this very informal, because it's about a discussion of how do we take the board members in ASEAN towards ASEAN 4.0. The first question I wanted to start off was around the pool of board members in ASEAN. ASEAN has a population of 650 million. As pointed out by Stefan earlier this morning, one key role of board members is defining strategy. How do we help our management in our companies to run their strategy if we do not know markets around ASEAN? So therefore, getting board members from other ASEAN countries is very critical to us. So let's start with the first question to Datuk Shireen.
Oh.
As the chair of Bursa, Malaysian Stock Exchange, how do you see the importance of this vis-a-vis the companies that you regulate here in Malaysia?
Okay, well, first, foremost, I'm here and will speak on my personal views and not on behalf of the exchange. I think otherwise I'll get into big trouble. So let me be clear. So, sorry, what exactly did you want me to answer? I just got the bit about regulation.
No, the question is the pool of board members from ASEAN. How important is it for Malaysian companies listed on the stock exchange here in Malaysia to have board members from diverse countries outside Malaysia to help them propel forward towards ASEAN 4.0?
Okay, sorry. I suppose, looking at that from a broader base, I think that would be a good idea because having diverse skill sets is, of course, very important. But I think that we have to also look at the quality of directors. And something that I feel very strongly about is to ensure that the directors that everybody has are fit and proper. And what I'd like to see is I'd like to see a little bit of standardization on what is determined as fit and proper.
Right.
Because there's a lot of screening process done at an IPO stage. And then post-listing, and as the companies mature, there's less and less review done on a fit and proper basis.
Right.
So for ASEAN as a whole, if we could have a system where we look at, for example, ensuring that directors are not bankrupt, they have to sign a declaration. Mm-hmm. In Malaysia, we have secret CTOS, which would be certainly useful. There could also be a possible basic test for directors to undertake. Mm-hmm. You may laugh, but some of those directors out there really should have a test. And I think that this will help the nomination committees and also the companies or the organizations that hold these lists of directors. Right. Because we don't name and shame. I think that, I spoke quite strongly about the recent issue with the environmental pollution and the haze. Mm-hmm. And why is it that, companies directly or indirectly who impact the environment and they're flouting the environmental laws, there's no sanctions on them. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is something that we need to move towards, actually having sanctions for directors. It doesn't have to be a large amount. It's just showing the rest of the world that ASEAN is not happy having haze, we're not happy with what's going on, and directors are standing up. So, short answer, yes, but I have a lot of caveat and suggestions to make this really a very robust way of having a very thorough process of having a group of directors you could choose from.
Right. So it's important to have board members from other countries, but we need a standard way of fit a proper test, and all the processes.
Correct.
I was talking
I mean,
to-
that's my view.
That's very important. That's very important. Thank you. At the break, I was talking to Kun Kolvet, as we've read in the brochure, but he prefers to be called Kun Colin. So Kun Colin, we were discussing just now, and we mentioned about ASEAN 4.0. Before we go there, we need Board 4.0. By the way, the Securities Commission Chairman mentioned that we have to learn a lot from the Institute of Directors of Thailand. So perhaps you can share with us from your view of Board 4.0.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for having me here, and congratulations to ICDM. I have a lot to learn from this too. Basically, Boardroom 4.0, what is it? Just reflecting on Thailand's perspective, and this is only on Thailand's perspective. We have around 700 companies listed, and 21 companies are listed on Dow Jones Sustainability Index. And that's a big thing. And that is a lot of company. But you see some other statistic, Corruption Perception Index. Thailand score 38 out of 100. Inequality, ranked by Credit Suisse, we rank #1, outpass India and Russia. In terms of Robeco-Sam's ranking sustainability of our country, Thailand, we are bottom 10. What's going on? How come we have 21 companies on our Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and on the other hand, our other index is not doing that well? So that's reflecting something. That's reflecting that maybe our board are not doing enough. And that's what I'm trying to come on to say. Boardroom 4.0, the board needs to drive society for a better society. It's like this morning, the chairman of Stock Security Exchange Commission said, boardroom, you have to not only your company being sustainable, but your supply chain. You have to inspire your supplier to be sustainable also. This morning we were talking about, he mentioned about corruption issue. How could large company in Thailand inspire their supplier to join anti-corruption scheme? And not only that, Asia, can we all work together on some issues like corruptions or like haze or like inequality? Learn from each other. That's what we mean by ASEAN 4.0. Don't get stuck with the word ASEAN, because we set up ASEAN in order to have collective sustainability. So we have to understand what do we mean by collective sustainability and work on that.
Very good, thank you. So for Board 4.0 for you is making sure the board members play a bigger role in the society, helping in terms of equality, in terms of, add more?
Yes, there have to be stewardship of sustainability of their company. There have to be stewardship of the culture of their company.
Right.
Who said that? Peter Drucker said that culture eat strategy for breakfast.
Breakfast, yes.
Culture eat compliance for snack. It means whichever company that has problem with compliance, you look at their culture. Is the culture that is problematic? Has the board ever asked the management, how are we doing with whistleblowing? In the past 3 years, has employee ever used the whistleblowing before? If not, why not?
Interesting.
If not, can you check on the employee engagement survey on the category of the speak up, the ability for younger generation or the employee to speak their mind to the management? Is there such thing? All these things is very little thing, but it's about culture, and the boardroom has to own the culture.
Interesting. So Board 4.0 relates to ASEAN 4.0, having to play a bigger role in driving society changes and making sure the culture is there. Culture have strategy for breakfast. Madam Thanh from Vietnam. Madam Thanh is the chairperson of the Institute of Directors from Vietnam. What's happening in Vietnam from your point of view? Are there enough board members? Do they need cross-border board members, etc., your view?
First of all, thank you for having me here today, and I'm very happy to see that ICD organized the very first conference for international directors. And in Vietnam, Vietnam Institute of Directors, we call, in short, we call VIOD, very newly established just last year in April. So we, which is the idea of the pool of directors in ASEAN, I think it's a great idea. Because look at in Vietnam, as you all may know that the Vietnam markets grow rapidly. So up to now, we have nearly 700 listed companies and more than 1,000 what we call the public company, upcom, not listed, but about listed. And beside that, we have 1,000 SME and family business, which is where they really need the director, independent directors. And the second thing, we understand that there are a lot independent directors who come from outside and sitting in the board with the Vietnamese company, especially where they have the foreigner shareholding there. But no pool for them to connect to each other, to share more and to do how to serve the public and serve the board better. And the other thing is also on the top 10, top 5 of foreign investors into Vietnam. So within the Asia that we have Singapore, Thailand and Malaysia is also there. So with the connecting and also set up the Asian pool of directors, it's really great idea. Then as we listen to Stefan talking, he talking is really a good thing. Now it's business. It's not just business. Business is also beside that. It's a corporation and cooperate to each other to support for the company grow on sustainable base. As well as the whatever directors do, it together with board try to deserve the trust from the public. So the public is now not just within the one market like Malaysia or Thailand. So it's also cross-border with the Asian. So I think which is in Vietnam, it's really also we as a new market, emerging market. Yeah. So we really think that's a great idea. So then Vietnam can learn more and exchange more experience in serving the market from the board of directors perspective. Absolutely.
Vietnam is having one of the highest growth. In fact, a number of commentators are saying with the trade war between US and China, one of the biggest beneficiary will be Vietnam. And so the calling there is for board members that are diversified to help out. Datuk Sri, Dr. Nick, good friend, chairman of Zaid Ibrahim and law firm here, but also you are the chairman of the Malaysian Singapore Business Council. So looking at both countries, the need for cross-border board members, and what are the challenges of getting that from your point of view?
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, all right. Okay, first on the Malaysian-Singapore relationship, I mean, that's relatively easy. The answer is yes, we need a pool of directors generally for ASEAN. But we have to acknowledge the fact that different countries will have different levels of capabilities. For Singapore, for example, 8 out of 10 people that you know from the other side normally are married to Malaysians or are themselves Malaysians from Tanjung Malim working in Singapore. So nature versus nurture. So they know us very well. But in other countries, the knowledge of the country's particular needs and insights would need a local input. There was one company that I was in where they do basically food and beverage for the region, and the product that we wanted to bring to Thailand, for example, we wanted to bring the same one that we had in Malaysia and Singapore, needed a different ingredient. They need to be sweeter. Apparently, Thais need things to be sweeter than others. So we learned from that lesson, and that input from our Thai counterpart was very important. So the challenges is, again, the level of, shall we say, development of different member countries, in a sense. I mean, it's relatively easy for more developed countries with IODs like Thailand and Vietnam, where we have a pool of directors that we can refer to. But countries like in Myanmar or Laos, because of the country's development stage, we even have problems getting directors who can speak English well. We had companies where we engaged in or discussed where we need to have translators around to explain some of the concepts, and that deters development generally. So level of competency of countries is also important, as well as the type of companies that we are involved in. Those big public listed companies with regional outlook will normally have the right kind of personalities, the right kind of people on the board. But the smaller SMEs that do export to regional countries within ASEAN, the level of people that are on the board, shall we say, will need kind of standard that Shireen was mentioning earlier. And that's hard to basically get by. And if a country doesn't have an IOD pool, it's extremely difficult, just word of mouth, and get the same people coming in.
That's right.
Sort of thing.
That's right. It's the pool, right? It's the pool.
You need a pool.
Yeah. Very good, very good. Just to remind everyone, if you've got any questions, just put into the Slido. I'll got one more round of questions and I'll open the floor for questions. The second question around ASEAN 4.0 is about diversity of board members. Stefan also mentioned it just now about the challenges of technology, for example. So perhaps view from panelists about the availability and also the composition of board members. Maybe we start with Malaysia, Datuk Shireen, right? So from my own experience, like Datuk Nick, many lawyers are on the boards. I'm a trained accountant, so many accountants, government servants. But how about diversity in other areas? Technology, for example, banking, manufacturing.
I think that for boards today, having a technology officer or someone at the board level who has been a technology officer is important. You can see that for bank boards, that's becoming more and more of a requirement, especially with some of the cyber risk issues that you're facing. The other area that I think that is important today is to have somebody with HR experience. I think having a board member with HR experience, because of all the changes that are happening, you're going to have a lot more retraining, you're going to have to look at skill sets, and having an HR director without somebody at the board level with that type of expertise, I think is very challenging. So going forward, having someone with that sort of expertise is critical, especially when you've got a big organization, and because of the technology changes, you're going to have to train or even worst case, release people. So it is a massive ongoing process that we are seeing. The other issue or the other area that I think is very important and tends to be overlooked is having someone on the board with risk experience. Enterprise risk issues are huge now. And many areas, because of technology is just the first bit, but then there's the repercussion onto the rest of the companies. So risk and enterprise risk skill set is also something that I'd like to see more of.
So technology, HR, and risk.
Well, really, because technology is causing all these problems, right? You will need the HR side, because at the end of the day, you still need people.
Interesting.
And having to reskill people, upskill them, or even MSS or VSS are just the ongoing topics that boards have to deal with today.
Absolutely. Madam Thanh from Vietnam.
I also really interested with what Stephen mentioned about the board diversity. So this is not only the gender or diversity, but at least we see that we need more women in the boardroom. In Vietnam, we have no quota for that, but when stock exchange they rating listed company, they always look at that as a one plus point. And the second thing, we also see that as a common board in the other country, maybe accountant and lawyers, and also retired person who working on who serving the board. So it's really diversity in terms of age, as Stephen talking, that we need young people. And maybe they young people with what we call the 4.0 leadership, leadership and business mindset. And also we, now in Vietnam, some company, especially when they have the foreigners shareholder, they do the diversify in terms of age. And also the one thing is mentioned, I think is really good. And I don't know how to make it, how to see that happen in reality in Vietnam. We say like diversity in terms of, we're talking about board skill sets, but skill set, it should come from different segments or different industries. Yep. So because the board at the top level about the driving strategic level as well as the sustainability growth, rather than and then they ask the great question, not the operation question. So if we have the diversity in terms of segments or industry, so both have the both have more skill sets in ask the good question, not to under the business of the company, to under the markets and how the company interactive with the business and social society. I think that is the really make board work more efficiency. But in Vietnam, it's just about open that. And we see the quite a happen with the listed company who have the foreigner shareholder. Then they also have that direction. But for the local listed company, it's just not aware. The level of awareness not that yet. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. So there are two other diversity. We always talk about diversity in terms of gender. One is age. I think Stefan mentioned about it. The other one is industry knowledge and segment. So Datuk Sri, Dr. Nick, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, some of our listed they're very specialized sectors, but they don't have people from the particular sector in the board. It could be airline, power utility, etc., etc. Telco. Your views.
Right. Again, my personal view.
Yes.
Essentially, a board, as far as my experience has been, have to write the right balance. And the right balance is always key. You don't have, like football team, you don't have all strikers or defenders. A mix of all the positions to be filled. And it depends on every particular board. But I have the view that at least must be one person in the board who knows the industry to counterbalance the technical views of the management. Because I find that's eliminating. Because otherwise, you might be at a loss if management basically jumbles you up with technical jargon that you don't want to say that you don't understand, give people say that you're not clever, you don't know the topic, but you need to have one, to me personally. But the right balance is important, and the right personality as well, because it's important to have board member who's open for views, open for opinions, and open to discuss and debate, and not too opinionated. I find the most difficult boards are, we have one or two board members who have strong views and does not want to even accept any other views. And even how good they are, it's very difficult to harness a board. And a chairman who can able to harness all the different abilities of a board. And I've seen that happening. And taking the point about technology, the board chairman must be strong enough to push some of the agenda. We had one board where board members did not want to accept iPad as a means of reading your board minutes. And there was strong reason, because I cannot take my notes, very hard, I cannot see the back papers and all that. Also, you all have been through that. And the board chairman basically said that either you change or we change you. So, and that was true. That's real. I mean, I can mention the name of the chairman himself, but it's a him, by the way. Yeah. So basically, we need to have a strong board chairman who knows the strength of all and willing to open up and allow debate, but harnessing like a maestro in an orchestra all the qualities in a fine tempo. But otherwise, but talking about the young, one experience I have is that you need the input of the young, especially if you are a fast-moving consumer goods company, that you need input of the consumer. But just be mindful of the fact that they are young, and whereas the older generation, the more senior ones, understand compliance, governance, they do not. And that's plus. Sometimes they see things in different perspective, but we need to manage that as well.
That's right.
Because the young can be young and they don't care. And also for them to be mature enough to accept the other view. I've done one but we can get the input not necessarily on the board, but from committees or sub-level, team focus groups and all that. Sure. But you need the input because we don't, there was one company that we went to, the advisor of media said that, about social media advertising, whereas we learned the iPad and use it, they were born within the iPad generation, and they only know iPad is their life. Yes. So my daughter doesn't read papers, she reads online all the news. So we need to understand that perspective before we can help to sell those things to them. Absolutely. So it's a real issue. But again, having the right balance.
That's right. Yeah. So the point is balance, having industry knowledge, but balance in terms of willing to listen and not just have an opinion. The point about the age is interesting. I had a presentation to a board recently on digital bank, and there was a really resistance from the board. So, Kun Colin, from your experience, there are many giants from Thailand in terms of PTT and CP Group and all that. What have you learned? What have you seen about having younger board members or industry board members?
It's starting to change right now. Some of the board, for example, K-Bank, Kasikorn Bank, which is one of the largest banks in Thailand, their newest board member is 39 years old, female, owner of business, SME. This lady, she founded a cotton candy business. Why would K-Bank in a banking business appointed someone like this in their bank? It's because they understand their business model well enough that they need a fresh idea, SME, startup, someone who's savvy in social media. So this is why they appointed this lady, Janissa, to be at their board. Interesting. We're starting to see, for example, another example would not about the age, but about the skill. You need to really understand your business model in order to understand what kind of board you need, which is sometimes it's not easy because we always come up with the template of auditing.
That's right.
Legal. What else? Finance. But for example, Banpu is a coal mining company in Thailand, and 85% of their revenue comes from outside Thailand, and many of them comes from Indonesia because they have coal mining in Indonesia. So much that Banpu right now has appointed a director who is Indonesian, for the reason that operating coal mining in Indonesia is culturally sensitive. And you have to understand the mindset of the worker. And especially this board, he used to be the contractor. So he understands the business.
Interesting.
So this is, when we say, okay, appointing a board who is IT, do we know which kind of I or T that suit our business? Because I and T are two different things. Information is data. If you are bankers, if you're a bank, you need someone who understands data, how to protect it, and how to cultivate it. So in terms of coming back to board skill, you really have to understand what you want.
What you need, yeah.
Exactly. But like we said, board skill, having the dream team is not enough because it comes back to culture within the boardroom. You can have a dream team of all these gurus, but they don't talk to each other because the chairman wouldn't let them talk to each other.
Right.
So,
So the dream team that is, sorry, Midanta.
Just one point I would like to share with you. I'm not sure in other country, but in Vietnam, State Security Commission issued one regulation, which is each board should have the 1/3 of board members are independent members.
Yes.
So then every listed company should follow that rule. So diversity, because the normal board in Vietnam, so the board member represent for the big shareholders, or they may nominate by the minority shareholder, then they present for them. So, but at least 1/3 of board members, as they are independent. So then diversity in terms of interest, say like they independent, not present for any shareholder, then they work together with board member to protect the interests of the whole company and the public and the all stakeholder. So that point, I think, is linked to the first point you just mentioned about the pool of directors.
Right.
So then that may create the potential opportunity for board member can work cross-fund or cross-border to be a board member from one to other country. Why we need more diversified from industry and from the, I can say that geography as well.
Right, right.
That's what, it's just my thought.
Thank you, thank you. So that, again, we're talking about ASEAN 4.0. So we're talking about building a pool of board members, but not just board members, but diversity, independent board members, what do you call it, industry knowledge, different skills, risk management, IT, HR, which part of IT, I or T. And the other one is the age. You mentioned the example from K-Bank, that's really interesting. 39-year-old, not in banking, but serving as a potential view of the customers. Thank you. So now perhaps we can open to Slido, if you can have those Slido questions. We've got about half an hour, so there's a question from the gentleman there. So, yes, the mic is coming. If you could introduce yourself first.
My name's Alan Blewett. I'm an independent director from Australia. And I want to make an observation because your opening question about the pool of directors for ASEAN 4.0, we have in the room here a golden opportunity because we've got represented the Institute of Directors from Vietnam, the Thai Institute of Directors, and ICDM.
Right.
Now, what a great opportunity to start thinking about a cross-cultural company directors course for ASEAN,
Right.
with the 3 organisations contributing to it. Because if I take a 15-year time perspective in Australia, many people who became company directors were unqualified and they learned on the job. Now, it is almost 100%. Within 6 months of you being appointed, you have to have completed the company directors course. It's not legislated, but it is expected, otherwise you're not serious. Now, my other, really a question, a hypothetical. Diversity is very hard to achieve on a board when the board may be representative of stakeholders and shareholders who've elected the directors. So it may be easier, and I want to ask, I'm just really wondering whether the panellists are prepared to take a left field question.
Sure.
I'm on a board where we cannot change the directors easily because there are 2 big blocks of shareholders and they control who gets elected as a director. It's a private company. Right. However, what we've done is we've encouraged the CEO to have an extremely diverse senior management team.
Okay.
Both gender, age, ethnicity, business experience. And in a sense, we're getting the diversity from a high quality management team rather than taking years of struggling through the politics getting a diverse board.
Sure.
And I was just wondering what the panellists would think of that.
Sure. So there are 2 questions. One question is, what do we think of the opportunity here, so Thailand, Vietnam, and maybe the Malaysian panelists here, of having a cross-culture training for board members so that we can help to build that diversity, number one. Maybe we take that first question first. Anyone? Madam Thanh?
I understand that from Malaysia or Thailand and even Vietnam, we also have the exchange knowledge from Thailand and Malaysia. And we start doing what we call the Certified Director Training Program. So we call, in short, we call CDP, so Certified Director Program. So it's really one we based on the international practice, the best practice. The second, we look at the others that, especially from Vietnam, we have a lot of learn from Thailand, but what we call the CDP. So CDP is produce a certified director. At least they qualify at certain level. So one thing I thought, at least Vietnam, Malaysia, and Thailand, we look at that and we see how we create and connect the CDP from one to other country. Then we have the same level of the certified directors. That's one thing I thought.
So what you're saying is there's already a training program in Vietnam and probably Malaysia and Thailand, and see whether we can use that as a base to. Datuk Shireen, from your
Yeah, that's.
I suppose to answer the question about having a diverse management team, because you can't change the board, my first thought would be, well, is the company making money and is it profitable? Because if the company is making money, then I suppose, don't change something that's working. But on the flip side, if the management team is presenting a strategy piece that the board has to think would suit the company going forward, if the board members are not skilled enough or not broad enough in their thoughts, are they able to give that effective feedback to the management team to take this forward? So my guidance would be to try and speak to the shareholders, I know easier said than done, to try and consider having a little bit of change as their board members. But if it's a private company, why would they bother? I mean, I do know some private companies out of Hong Kong, and they have no interest to change. They like what they're doing. They think what they're doing is correct. It's a family-run company, so that's the way it goes. But I do think that having the board members who have the right skills, they are the ones to make sure that what management is saying. I heard it earlier where management comes up with these, very shishi type statements, it's all too high level sort of comments to the board, which I find quite extraordinary. But if the board is not able to give that feedback from their own skill set, then I think that there is some part of that it's lost for the company going forward. But again, it's easier said than done with a private company.
Yeah. I guess the question is it either or, having a diverse board or a diverse management, or and both, right? So, Kun Colin, you're nodding your head?
Or even have the advisory board.
Advisory
that doesn't have to be a board.
Okay.
So I think it starts with the business pain point. What we are talking about here is, should we have a common pool of ASEAN directors?
Right.
Let's start with the pain point, and let's start with the company that badly need it. So what type of company that need this kind of solution? It could be like what we mentioned, mining company that are culturally sensitive. What else need that kind of ASEAN wisdom? Yeah, I think we have to start with the needs and the pain point first.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Sorry.
I think just to add a reality check in a sense, it's easy to see we want A, B, C, D, E type of directors in a particular board, because some boards are small by nature, and some boards, as you mentioned earlier, will have blocks already entitled for shareholders in a sense, so you don't have much chance to maneuver. But what I found with a few companies was that in the end, you can't have all the expertise on the board, and you may need to import it through training,
Right.
or through a third party, what do you call it, input consultants coming in at the time for certain projects, and to confirm or validate the views of management or the views of the industry. And I think in the end, companies must agree that you need to have more diverse views generally before you can make a decision, as opposed to just staying on with the same kind of board all the time. So, and as somebody mentioned earlier on, the AI dimension, the 4I basically has made things very fast to adapt, and you need to be on your toes. So you just can't rely on the board. You need expert opinion, and expert views on outside. You need to pay for it, but sometimes it's a necessity if you're not aware, because you never have enough knowledge on the board. So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And as you pointed out, with industry revolution 4.0, things are changing so fast.
Yeah.
So can you afford not to have some people on the board to help you?
Yeah, that's why to me the board effectiveness report every year, some consider it as just a routine check.
Right.
But if you use it efficiently, you'll know what are the expertise of the members. You know what is lacking. You know what kind of training particular board needs that most people don't have.
Okay.
And harnessing that rightly is important, because you just don't want to be just like internally done and just checking. Everybody check the same box. Everybody is nice, and there's no honesty in evaluation or comment about certain board members, and they appear assessment of yourself that look, I'm lacking in this particular knowledge, this
Right.
particular company, for example.
Yeah. But I think I like Kun Colin's point about the pain point of the organization, Alan. So I've got 4 very interesting questions. I was thinking, we've changed. If you can, the first one, board internship. Board internship. Would this be accepted in ASEAN countries? Any of the panelists want to take this question? Board internship.
What is board
What do you mean by that?
So maybe Raj, the one who asked the question, if you're still in the room. Board internship. That's Raj. Thank you, Raj.
Good morning. Board internship is where board-ready directors, whether men or women, are assigned to companies on a fixed-term basis, a 1-year or 2-year basis, where they sit and join board meetings. They may not participate, but they will sit and join the meetings. So what is critical here will be to ensure that all confidential discussions are retained in the room. So there should be some signed agreements. I think this has worked very well in Australia. So I'm just curious whether this kind of internship program might work in Malaysia or any other country in ASEAN region. Because definitely this will allow future board members to get the real board experience, which they might not have at the moment. At the same time, it will help the board to identify potential board members should one of the directors retire.
Right. So to clarify, Raj, they are not board members,
No.
but they are like an intern who comes in,
Yeah.
join board meetings after a year.
Yeah, they're pre-qualified. Let's say ICDM pre-qualifies them, or any of these bodies.
Okay. And the reason for not becoming a full board member, because they don't trust him or her well enough?
Yeah, as we know, most of the board positions are hired through people you know,
Okay.
right? Most of it. And if there's no other channel, then how would you then get to know new talents available in the market?
Okay, good. Yeah, Ms. Tang, you want to take a stab? What do you think in Vietnam? Would you do that?
Actually, this is the interesting term, which is we say board internship. So internship is really the way for somebody to show the capability to serve board. In Vietnam, I can say that not really open for that yet.
Not open.
Even to be honored to share with you that regulation require that every listed company have at least 1/3 board member independent directors member. However, some company as the comments as another other question in the last also have some company have a strict no outside interest policy, something like that. So it's really the need to open mind. What Stephen also mentioned about corporate culture.
That's right.
So corporate culture is not just reflect from the social society culture. This is a corporate culture with transparency, with the integrity, with a efficiency of the board.
Right.
So then for Vietnam, if we can say that if they follow with the regulation is that 1/3 board member are independent, it's still very good. So not really open for the board internship.
Not yet, not yet.
Not yet, yes, not yet, yeah.
Datuk Shireen?
It really, I love the point also Stephen mentioned that now it's not just you design of products, the market and the society designs of products,
right.
and then it may change.
Listen,
Yeah, it may change.
Datuk Shireen?
I think it would be a very challenging situation to be in, to have somebody come in as, I term it as an observer, who is not representing a shareholder, is not representing perhaps a regulator at the time there was a crisis, to come in for their own learning or perhaps their own exposure. I mean, I wouldn't really see why a company would want to do that unless it was a major shareholder or one of the big shareholders saying, you know, we're grooming this person to come in as our next independent and they're coming in as an observer. I think it would be quite challenging in the board meeting to have someone sitting there as an intern board member. I mean, I'd be interested to see other companies or countries that do this, but I do think that would be quite a difficult scenario.
Okay.
You might be able to do it from your, you know, your head board down into your subsidiaries, but yeah, I think that would be quite a
It's challenge
challenge.
at the moment. Kun Colin?
No.
No, okay. All right, we'll go to the next. Sorry.
Can I?
Yeah.
We talk about board composition, and we talk about, and even though we, we have to, don't be stuck with the word board diversification without understand that even though you have IT guru from outside, do you engage them enough for them to know your business?
Right.
I think this is really important because I used to be a board member, and it took me a year to understand the business, to be able to contribute.
Right.
And this is key. Do you, as a board or management, engage the new board to understand how they can contribute? Because otherwise, they will not know how to contribute.
That's more of orientating the new board member to make sure they contribute. But it's Raj, at the moment, it's a bit difficult. Datuk Sri, if you don't mind taking the question or the second one, what diverse board members, with diverse board members come difference in views, etc. How does a chairman allows openness in discussion and yet able to lead towards a decision?
I guess I mentioned this earlier. The key is to get the right kind of chairman that really understands the company and unfortunately experienced enough to manage a team of various board members who are strong personalities and strong views. And the right word we keep saying is harnessing the energy of all the board members. I mean, it sounds a bit airy-fairy, but basically it's
a skill.
important.
It's a
Yeah,
skill.
a skill. And sometimes it's just an X factor. You may have a person who may not be seen to have experience before but able to manage. And the company must understand that the chairman himself will have the stature to earn the respect of the board members. Because having board members who are strong personalities and are successful in their own right, countering their views, allowing openness, and coming to a decision, not necessarily on a consensus basis, is not easy. And some different styles. Some chairmen allow big debates and arguments, but end up with a consensus.
Right.
And some basically try to push through, but allowing openness is the key, because then you hear all the views. And the board members themselves all must be open enough to understand and accept differing views, because there are times when you think that a point has been taken up, but it has not. And somebody raises it and say, oh shit, I forgot that point. And accept that. So having some kind of the reasonable people on the board, who are not all is yes men. I mean, I believe in having a board that speaks up is key, especially independent directors. And I value the views whenever I chair that the views of everybody is important.
Yeah. There was a question out there, Alan.
Sorry to come back twice, but I wanted to make an observation about Raj's question, because what is happening in Australia successfully, and I know it's a different culture and corporate environment to ASEAN, but the concept, which is similar to what Raj said, but it's called participating consultant. Now, it's an active decision by the board to appoint someone with the normal selection process who you think has got potential to be a director, but they've got skills that you currently don't have on your board. Let's say IT or AI. And you can then select someone for those specific skills, put them on a one-year contract. The experience I've had is they have every right except voting. So they participate fully, they argue fully. It's just when it comes to the vote, they hang back, because only the elected directors have the right to vote. But as long as they are inducted properly and the culture of the board accepts them, they can make a very valuable contribution, and you get a succession planning pipeline because you've seen some good people and what they can offer. So I'd be very encouraging of whether you call it internship or participating consultant. I think you should explore the concept because it can add value to boards from a number of perspectives.
Thank you. There's a question here towards similar topic. What are good practices in having board talents? Build or buy? Build or buy? Ms. Thanh.
Just want to share with you one time. Lately, we have a discussion we have the conference and discussion for board of directors. And one question came to the audience: as a director, as a board member, do you want to be a loyalty director or efficiency director? So it's really the question to you and to you as a director, to the board. What kind of member you want to be or who you want to be as a board members? Loyalty or efficiency? So answer easy, both. So both. And question that loyalty. So which, who, what, and how you loyalty. So it's really need to define the values of the company where the board serving for. It's really the interest of the all stakeholder, not just the loyalty to the owner, to the chairman. So then it really come back to say like, okay, so important for board to do the succession plan. And succession plan, and in the common practice, talking about the CEO succession plan, who gonna leading for the management, but also succession plan as who should be next generation or next terms board, because a lot of companies, they have a very strict policy with only board one person can serve board only 2 terms. Each term is 4 years, for example, so they cannot, even they very experienced in and understand the business, but they cannot serve the board for the more than 2 terms. So how the board in Vietnam, so how board gonna build the next generation? So practical as a newly established, but VIOD, Vietnam Institute of Directors, we have a lot of questions come from the public company. Hey, VIOD, can you have a within the networking of the members, can you find out someone for us to look at that? And then they're gonna interview in advance, and they see if they good potential member, so then they can consider for the next board term,
right.
But not the board internship. But we have very good company which we call Vinamilk in Vietnam.
Yeah,
the top 3 listed company in Vietnam in terms of quality, in terms of corporate governance, in terms of growth and everything. So then they allow the potential, they call the successor for the board member. So then they allow them to attend at least 1 or 2 board member for certain section, but not for operation section. So that
you've identified them ahead. And your question about loyalty or efficiency. Sorry, Datuk Shireen?
No,
about build or buy.
No, I was just going to add, in the context that you shared just now, there are some boards that I've seen that what they do is they have specialist committees. And some of the board members will go down to those specialist committees and then they will hire external consultants or external individuals with specialist skills to join those subcommittees to oversee certain projects within the group. And that is quite effective. They don't necessarily become board members, but I have seen some eventually become board members. But it's not an internship. It is a paid role. And it's a paid role for a specific period of time on that specialist committee.
I see. Very good.
So I have seen that.
Very good. Build or buy, Thailand?
Okay. There's something you cannot buy. You cannot buy trust.
Right.
You cannot buy wisdom. What does the board do? Board act as a mindfulness of the organization, while management act as a brain. The brain is there to plan and command to the muscle for performance.
Right.
We need the board for sustainability of the organization.
That's right.
Accountability of the board is on sustainability. That, I think, it takes time to build.
It does take time, yeah. Yeah, it does take time. So to a certain degree, you do need to build that.
Yes.
There are 2 questions that I want to pick up because we're supposed to end at 12:50. I know that's lunchtime, so that's my KPI. So make sure we finish it on time. 2 questions, and perhaps I can get Datuk Sri Nick to answer that. One question is around, just now was we hear profusely about culture. For some companies, that's ailing, irreversibly, right? Do we need a culture where, you consult everybody, or it's draconian and we've got to get this done? So your view on that. And there's another question, I'll come back to that, this question.
Very simply, I mean, in the end, on a macro view, shareholders will have to make the decision. And essentially, if the company is doing well, it's very tough for you to basically try to make too much changes because you're scared in a way, unless the company is totally out of whack and you need basically to change it. But if the company is doing very badly, then of course, draconian changes are needed, and sometimes really wholesale changes even at the board level and management. And shareholders would know that. Shareholders would see that. The largest shareholders should be making moves from behind the scenes, not necessarily at the AGM. And we see that happening even in Malaysia. Some of the AGMs do where the shareholders are vigilant in making their comments and unhappiness with the board or even the management. So I think simply you need to, when a company is doing badly, you need basically to make recognition. You can't wait for culture. I guess that's my view.
Okay. Couldn't call it?
Sorry, I don't get the question.
The question is this. You mentioned also, it's important to build a culture in the organization and among the board members. But what if the company is failing, where you need to take drastic action? Do you still consult everybody, or you just...
Okay, so what is culture? Culture is unwritten rule. It's everyone's doing without being a policy. Culture starts from belief. Even though the company is failing, and actually, company that is failing is a golden opportunity to address culture. But you have to start with the right belief that you can do it, that the board is there and accountable for sustainability, that the board and the management are seeing the same thing. So I would say that everything starts from inner belief, and this inner belief is torn from the top.
Torn from the top.
Exactly. So if the board believes the same thing, and believe with the management that this is the way to turn around. Yes, it's not like I'm too busy for culture because I need to save my business.
Right.
That is really a golden opportunity.
Right. Thank you. Dr. Shireen, there's this question. If we need directors with IT or HR or risk skills, etc., how does the company handle the cost, especially if it's an SME?
You mean how do they get these skills?
Affordability.
Oh, affordability. Well, this is, one of the challenges of corporate structure today. There are so many requirements, both for unlisted and listed companies, that one has to wonder when there's going to be enough pushback to say, you just need a certain amount. You don't need these huge reports that actually very few people read. Mm-hmm. So for these skills, you would either have to have select committees where you get people in to help you with these skills. I do think that you have to have a board, even at an SME level, and I would just recommend, if I had to choose, with all the changes going on, I would choose HR first. In many big organizations abroad, before you can become a CEO, you have to spend at least 1 year in HR. It's very common for large multinationals to have this because being a CEO and not understanding people, you're not able to make those changes or make the development you need. I think it's a very underrated skill set,
Yep.
but it's highly critical.
HR.
Highly critical, especially when you're going through all these transformation changes that we're seeing today, and reskilling or letting staff go is becoming a very common occurrence for many, many corporates. So I would have to pick and choose if I was a very small organization. Of course, if you're lucky, if you can get someone with HR and risk experience in one.
Right.
Technology, generally, you can get advisors, but of course, that's pricey. There might be some industry groups that you could possibly go and see and try and get some skill set advice from them. Of course, there are your accountants who generally have some skills within those firms who can give you some guidance as well.
So you prioritize HR? if you
I
can get
would,
away.
in today's world, I would prioritize that.
All right. Madam Thanh, how would you pay for it? How would you pay for those skills?
Actually, my personal point of view is really in the same page with her. So because the SME is really not a big size enough to cover everything. So then with the HR is really focused on the talent and leadership development, then it's really need to what we call build, not buy. But for the other IT or legal or finance, in somehow, somewhat, the company, in the case it really need it, they're gonna outsourcing, or they're gonna have the contract to for the consulting, I think.
Thank you. It's 12:45, 5 more minutes to go. Any more questions from the floor? If not, we want to reverse the trend. We want to end early, so we're going to end it right here, if that's okay with all the panelists and all of you. So please join me in thanking the panelists for their wonderful views. Thank you so much.